Hello everyone. I'm Nicolas Saint-Lay. I'm developer at Odoo. The subject of this talk is the Odoo API, the external API. We will discover how you can interact from your external software, your own library with Odoo. At the end of the session, there will be a Q&A session, so feel free to scan the QR code and fill in the questions, and I will answer the question at the end of the talk. So we'll start with a small introduction, then I will show you what is new in Odoo 19, then I will show some code, and finally we'll see some older XML and Json RPC code. So you have built your awesome application, your best of breed application, and you need to read, write, search for information within Odoo, and you want to interact with Odoo. As you do not have access to the database itself, you should use the API of Odoo to interact with it. So what's new in Odoo 19? What's new in Odoo 19 is this page. Basically, you can go to any Odoo instance, Odoo 19 instance, /doc, and you get this web page. And this web page is full of important information. First of all, you have a list of models. The models are in Odoo what stores data and what stores the business logic. Once you've chosen a model here, you have access to the list of fields of this model. But more than that, you can choose some modules and see which fields this module is adding to the model you have selected. In addition to the fields, you also see all the methods available for this method. And when you choose a method, you have the documentation of the method. So you see what arguments does this method needs to work. You can even choose a programming language out of 4 programming languages. And when you select one language, like Python, for example, the system will give you an example of code to execute this method. So basically, just with one web page, I can search the model, the fields, the method, and see how to use the external API to interact with Odoo. I have an example, a working example, to interact with your own instance of Odoo. Sadly, this doesn't work with login and password. Login and password require to activate the 2-factor authentication, and you will not type in your 2-factor code each time you try to start your script. So instead of using a user and password combination, it's mandatory to use an API key. How to generate an API key? You go to your user profile, you choose to add a new API key. This will launch this wizard. This wizard asks for 2 stuff. The reason you need an API key. That way, when you will list your API key, you will retrieve why this API key is used for. And a duration of validity for the API key. This can go from 1 minute to unlimited. I highly discourage to use unlimited API keys. You choose a duration, validate, you get your key. Don't lose this key. This is the only time you will see your key in clear text. Once you close the wizard, you will never see your API key in clear text anymore. This doc page is not available for every user. You need to be member of the technical documentation users to have access to the doc page. You can also test the API directly with the web page. To do this, you just have to choose Json as the programming language. The first time, the system will ask you for your API key, and once done, you have the result. So no programming language required. You can just test directly within the web page. Let's now examine some Python code. I've chosen Python as a programming language because we are used to program in Python, but it works with any programming language, Java, etc. Go back to the web page. Choose Python as a programming language, and you just have to copy-paste the code. So I copy-paste the code in my Python file. Please store the API keys outside of your code. If you don't store your API key outside of your code, you will finish at some point to commit it to your GitHub repository, and you'll get an alert from GitHub saying you have leaked a password. If you see what this library is doing, this library is only using requests in Python. Requests is a Python library which do HTTP requests. That's it. It's the only requirements for this library, for this method. The headers are always the same for all requests. So instead of putting the headers in each request you will make, just put your headers in a command file. And the URL is the same for every request. The only thing that is changing is the two last parameters in the request, which are the model and the method. Now, we would like to make multiple calls to Odoo. A call to Odoo is done within a PostgreSQL transaction. If you do two distinct calls, you will do two distinct transactions. In this example, I'm searching for partners, and for each partner, I'm searching for data about this partner. The search for the partner is a transaction, and each call for the partners are done in their own transaction. It's very important to know, because sometimes you will write with your scripts. You will create data, unlink data. If you create a sales order and then do subsequent calls to create sales order lines, maybe you will reach a point where you have created your sale order, but not the sale order lines, because something weird happens. In usual Odoo code, everything is done within one transaction. So if in a method call in Odoo, you create a sales order, then the lines, either the sale order with all the lines exists or nothing exists. With the API, it's not the case. When you are using an API, an external API like this one, you are facing rate limiting. The rate limiting is enforced by the cloud provider. There is no cloud provider that will allow you to do as much call as you want. Here again, in my example, I have done a search within a loop. This example will search for 80 partners, and for each one of those 80 partners, search for sales orders. That means this script will lead to 81 calls to Odoo. If you look at the talks which are given by Raphael Collet or by the one I've made earlier, you see that we discourage people to use search within loops. It's also applicable for the API, external API. So beware the rate limiting and use the same advices as the one we are using with the regular Python code. Let's compare some code versus the API. Those two pieces of code do exactly the same thing. The main difference here is that the first one is using one transaction. The other one is using 81 transactions. So if I'm creating stuff within my call, maybe you will need to have created object or stuff like that. Instead of searching in loops, I advise you to use some read group as an example. If instead of searching for the sales order per partner, I'm searching for sales order group by partners, I will get the exact same result, but in only one call. So, prior to this API, there was an older XML JSON library. It was possible to use the XML RPC or JSON RPC protocol to interact with Odoo. That API was not very easy to use, so there were plenty of external libraries which were using, which were syntax sugar to ease the use of the XML and JSON RPC. This library is the one I am maintaining, and I've done the effort to make this library compatible with XML RPC and the new JSON root available in 19. So this library works for every version of Odoo up to now. Here is a code sample using the Odoo client lib library. The code looks like more like Odoo regular code. Beware that, again, each call is in a transaction. You can specify the protocol when you are initiating the connection to the server. The XML RPC was available since 6.1 and will not exist anymore in version 20. The JSON RPC exists since version 8 and will not be available in version 20. And the JSON 2 is available since version 19. So if this library is compatible with all versions of Odoo, can I keep my script for every version of Odoo? From the library point of view, yes, you can. You can keep the same script available. You can keep the same script for every version of Odoo. The problem comes from Odoo itself. In Odoo, the model structure changed from version to version. Let's say you have a script which search for account invoices. This model does not exist in 18. So you have a script which works perfectly in 16, but doesn't work in 18 because the model doesn't exist. If you call a method which doesn't exist anymore in Odoo, you should adapt your script. So you can keep the same script from version to version, except if the underlying model in Odoo has changed. A main difference between the old library the old API and the new API is the new API require named parameters. If you have looked at samples I gave, all the parameters were named. Here, I'm using unnamed parameters. I'm using positional parameters. To make this work with the new API, if you are using unnamed parameters, the system will start by doing a call to the server, to the /doc, to get the description of the method, to get the names of the parameters, to do the real call with the named parameters. So you can keep the unnamed parameters, the positional parameters, but it will be slower. I advise you to use named parameters up from version 19 and upper. So what's new with this Json tool? You get an easy way to interact from external sources with Odoo. You have read and write access to objects. Of course, the system strictly follows the record rules. You cannot bypass the record rules. So, depending on the user you will be using with your API, you will get the exact same information as the one you could get with the web client. You will not bypass the record rules. You can call any method on any object you have access to. It's not using users and passwords anymore, but it's using API keys, which is safer from a script point of view. It's way more easier to write cleaner code, and thanks to the doc page, it's really easy and helpful to create new scripts. You just have to copy paste and you will write cool code.
Thanks, Nicolas. So we already have several questions.
Yeah.
Does this use API user Odoo permission, or can we permission be fine-tuned by endpoints? The second one.
Does this use API user Odoo permission, or can permission be fine-tuned by endpoint? No. The permissions are exactly the same as the one for the objects and the method in Odoo. So it's not a matter of endpoints. It's a matter of record rules per model. The exact same ones you have when you use a list view or form view or whatever.
Is there pagination in the API calls?
Yes, if you see at the examples I gave, I use the limit keyword, but you also have the offset. It's basically, it's just a way to call method existing in Odoo. You can call the exact same method as the ones available in the Odoo code, except the ones starting with underscore, because they are private. You can use any public method on any public object available.
Can the endpoints be exposed to public users? No Odoo users, no API token?
No, you should write a web controller. For that, you already have the web controllers, and they are designed for that.
Is there a request limit? If I make 1,000 requests at once, I am blocked or not?
It depends on your host provider, but if you, I guess with 1,000 requests, you will not end your 1,000 requests. You will be blocked prior to that.
What is the rate limit on OAuth 2? Is it limited to the users or the app? The blue one. You don't know for this one?
No.
Okay. Is it possible to use Odoo AI via the API?
Is the Odoo AI method exposed publicly? Yes, you can use them. No, you cannot use them. As simple as that.
What is the difference between the old calling with JSON RPC routes it was still an HTTP request?
Yes, it's still an HTTP request. The main difference is the way everything is packed to be sent to the server and how the result is packed and sent to the server. There are technical differences because in the old XML and JSON RPC, you always get 200 response code. Here, you can get different response code. You can get 4, 500, etc. So if there is an exception in the call you do, prior you get a 200 response, now you get a 500.
Do nested data calls like invoice with
Yes,
invoice
of course.
lines?
Yeah, of course. You can use the exact same parameters as prior. It's just a matter of packing the stuff and sending it to the server. The server who handles the stuff is the same. It handles it the exact same way.
How to disable the API?
In your web server, you create a rule which limits the access to the /JSON2 route. If there is no access to the /JSON2 route, you cannot call the API. If you want to limit the access to the /doc page, you just have to remove the users from the technical documentation users.
Can we use it for Odoo SaaS?
Yes. Yeah, of course. It's available. It's built in Odoo. So, and it's built in Odoo community. So even on Odoo community, you can use it.
Can you exclude methods in the doc page by any other means than adding an underscore, a prefix on the name?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Performance difference between XML RPC and JSON2?
I don't think there is any noticeable performance difference, as the main performance issues are caused by the Odoo code itself, not the call from the script to the server.
Any developments foreseen regarding MCP?
This kind of doc page stinks the MCP. So
This was long. Can I use service users? I don't want to give access token of my users with all my rights. Rather wants to create for different use cases.
Yeah, you can create as many users as you want. You can create as many tokens as you want. Yeah, no problem.
Why did you choose for JSON2 and not well-known standard as Open API, REST API?
Julien Castillo will do a talk tomorrow about the JSON route, and he will explain what he has tried, what he had found working and not working, the issues he found in the various ways to use the API, and you'll get a full answer on this question.
Can an external user, such as a customers, use the API to integrate directly its order?
If the user is able to create an API key, yes, he can. As simple as that.
The current XML RPC API does not work with test instance where there is more than one database. Will the new API work with this kind of Odoo instance?
I don't know if I've let this, but in the parameters you can pass a parameter with the name of the database. But normally when the Odoo is correctly configured, you can have one URL per database, and it's quite easy to match an URL to a database, so reaching one URL will be automatically linked to one database, so normally it's not an issue, even with the old API.
Is there a way to get related, for example, many-to-one object in a single query, maybe implementing GraphQL? This one.
All the methods are available through this stuff, even the export. So you can export data, and the export of the data is able to export data from multiple models at one time, linked by many to one and many to many.
Okay, I think we missed one or two questions, so don't hesitate if you want to ask them to Nicolas after the end of this talk. And thank you. Thank you, everyone.